So I'm going to get into my car this morning, and there's a middle-aged woman walking up the street with a teenage girl, so I figure out mother and daughter. Pay them no mind. I go to get in my car, and I hear, psst, psst. Like, what the hell? Turn around, the lady's looking at me. She, psst. She's like, excuse me. I'm like, yeah. She goes, is this where the drugs are? I'm like, not to my knowledge. She goes, I heard this is where the drugs are. I'm like, I mean, what are you looking for? She's like, what? Is that what I look like? I'm like, what the hell? What do you mean? She's like, no, I just looked at this house right here because the house across the street from me is being sold. I live in the Burncoat area, by the way. And she goes, I just looked at this house right here, and somebody told me that, like, this is where the drug stops. The drugs stop. And then it gets worse that way or better that way. I'm like, oh, you mean, like, stops on this street? She's like, yeah. I'm like, lady, in my head, I'm thinking, like, it's spread all over. Like, I told her that. I said, it's spread all over. There's people all over the place doing drugs. What do you mean? Like, just in random places. There's no, like, cutoff on this part of the street, right? So... And she goes, oh, okay. Well, you know, this is a really cruddy part this is like the worst part of Worcester. So I'm like, I grew up here. It definitely gets a lot worse. Like, mind you, I live in the Berkeley area. It's like, it definitely gets a lot worse. And she's like, come on. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you look smart. She's like, and this is why I asked you, because you're young and, like, you're too smart to be from around here. And I'm like, no. For all you people that think like this, no. This is where it comes from. We get it out the mud out here. This is where it comes from. Grit. I learned grit out here. I learned strength out here. I learned to suck it up out here. Mind you, this lady, she's talking to me like where the drugs are. I thought this lady was asking me for drugs. Like, this lady was just as cruddy as all the drug addicts I've ever met. Like, what are you talking about? She was no better. The way she spoke, she was all like quiet and like the way she spoke. I'm like, her daughter completely walked away from her while she was talking to me. I'm like, lady, you don't seem any better than the people you're trying to criticize. She goes, so she says to me, yeah, this is the worst part. This is a really trashy part of Worcester. I used to work at Home Depot. I know how the upper class thinks. You know how the upper class thinks. So what are you talking about? I was just like, okay, well, it definitely gets a lot worse than over here. It definitely gets a lot worse. And then I just ignore her. She's like, well, have a good day. Enjoy your Sunday. I'm like, thanks. I just got in my car and left. I'm like, yo, this is crazy that people really think like this out here. And yes, she was a white woman. Hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. I was going to my my major camp, and I saw one of my friends there who was a white guy, and I thanked him. And I said, man, I thank you for being a good person, because not all white people act like you. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, that you still have this classism. I'm not even going to say racism. Classism, really? You know how the upper class thinks? You are definitely not upper class, because you're talking about moving right across the street from me, and you're out here, like, asking where the drugs are? You don't know nothing about nothing, lady. Get out of here. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Stay strong, you guys. All praises to the Most High.